Okay, for Apocalypse Now, it's Katie punches a dude, Margot misses cocaine, and oops, I did it again. Margot and Eliot have a bad day.
Okay. Who did Katie punch?
Who did Katie punch?
Who hasn't Katie punched?
Well, yeah. I think the dude that was with Marina.
Oh, okay.
She knocked him out, right?
Spoiler alert.
Well.
So, okay, this was a lot of fun. These were 2 fun episodes. We're going to cover them in one chunk because it aired in one chunk. Apparently just for funsies. I was like, looking.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, I was like, are we going to be off next week or something? And the network just thought it would be a fun treat. So that leads me to believe we are rapidly winding down. They haven't greenlit a season 6. And
that would be a bummer.
Part of me thinks this could be it. I have mixed feelings about that because we're at the halfway point, and this so far is not my favorite season. However, it's not bad, and it's been very interesting. Also,
and I mean, they've gone so far afield from the books that it doesn't really make a difference at this point. But the ending of the 3rd book is so fascinating, and it's such a showcase for Julia. And so part of me is like, now that it's Julia, they should do that. Like, it would still work, and it feels like there's not enough time to get there. So I'm a little disappointed about that, too.
Well, and that's just speculation. We could have another season, but I've said this probably in every episode of our coverage so far, but it's a very MacGuffin-y episode of a very MacGuffin-y show of a very, it's like we're really plowing through plot, and there's a lot of things that if it weren't so well written and acted, and if it weren't so clever, I would be annoyed at all of the like loops that we're having to jump through. And there were several like brilliantly astronomical coincidences and stuff. And it's like I said, I'm mostly fine with it, but the good, because that all sounds negative, and I don't necessarily mean it negative. And actually, before I move on to the good, the other negative thing for me is that it's starting to get exhausting with the stakes. I kind of would like for the stakes to come back down a little bit.
I agree.
But the good about these 2 episodes was for the first time this season and in a long time, we had virtually everybody together for entire chunks.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting because these are people who at one point were very close, and not only, have they gone off in different directions and come back together, many of them are different people. And so some of them quite literally are different people.
No, totally. And I do, though, want to express my dismay that for the 2nd week in a row, Fen was totally sidelined.
Yeah, I'm imagining she's off on a side quest. So I'm imagining she's going to be in next week's episode. She was sent to the fairy realm, correct? Mm-hmm.
Well, I think she was just sent on a fairy quest, but I do think the fairy took her to the fairy realm.
Her and Dean Fogg especially have been slight hangers-on because of the nature of their roles. And to an extent, I'm fine with it. And I get why Dean Fogg is sitting a few out. But she has acclimated so much to the humans and the human world that I would have found it interesting to have her there.
Agreed.
I like what a minx she's turned out to be in a way that had these Children of Earth ever come around, she probably never would have come into.
Exactly. I totally agree.
All of them together is what I liked the most. And we had a handful of dynamics because, and this is the part of me that slightly hopes the show goes one more season, is because we mentioned earlier about, obviously losing Quentin, who is leading this show now. And it is an ensemble. It doesn't necessarily need a lead, but I had proposed Julia. And I think that she is absolutely now the emotional core. They kind of have her playing this like maternal figure that kind of comes in and gives people almost like a companion, like an opposite companion to Margot's role.
Yeah, and she also is acting as a leader within them.
Yes, yeah. But then having said that, this last season and this season have really been showcases for Eliot, for Hale Appleman.
Oh my God, so much. I mean, he can, anything he does is such a fascinating and interesting like thing to do as an actor, but like you're right. Last season with being the monster, and this season with like dealing with losing Quentin and having had the monster in him, it's absolutely a showcase for some excellent work from him.
Yeah, and I do want to a little bit chart some of the plot points, but having said that, I am going to go straight to the end because we're here organically. The Oops, I Did It Again episode, which was not a musical episode, which was a bummer. Devastated.
We should have had some Britney Spears.
But it was a showcase for Margot and Eliot, and they are and have been fan favorites almost since moment one.
Yeah.
And they are interesting because they have really evolved and grown, but in a very realistic way. It's not kind of like how certain characters, like for instance, Lydia Martin or Cordelia Chase, it's like they kind of become a second or third character.
Right.
And that's not what's happening with Margot. And I really love that the show took time to acknowledge within the show the arc she has had and the growth, because Eliot flat out says it, where he's like, you are a different person now. And she still is very identifiably Margot. It's not like they had to retool the character between seasons 2 and 3. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
But the sense of stakes and the sense of growth and momentum from all of the seasons is all still there. It's all still in her performance.
It's all a very like, because there's so often we watch shows that are like less good than this, and characters begin acting in ways that are out of character and don't mesh with the growth that the character has done. And this show is the exact opposite of that, where all of these characters, I believe, are acting the way that they would act given what we already know about them.
Yeah, because I mean, this is a silly comparison, or maybe a not fair comparison, but it's like a show like Friends, they just became over the seasons exaggerated versions of themselves.
Sure.
And this is not doing that, because to me, it was very interesting watching Alice in this episode, because she is also a very different character.
Yeah.
And she was more of a sidekick. And it's not that she's unsure of herself, but it's like she's fucked up a couple of times.
Yeah, definitely.
So she's not quite the like prissy smarty pants that she was in season 1. And it's very helpful. I don't know. I like this version of her. The whole episode with Margot and Eliot was truly stunning, especially because they were in a Groundhog Day thing, and Josh named all of them.
Yeah.
All of the movies. It was very live, die, repeat.
Yeah.
Which I always forget the original name was All You Need Is Kill. And he was like, why would anyone change that?
Well, that's the name of the book. And the movie is Edge of Tomorrow. But the promotion for the movie, everything says live, die, repeat. So that's what people thought it was called.
That's what the cover says.
Yeah.
Like the Edge of Tomorrow is nowhere on that movie. So they were going through these loops, and by the end, when they had that scene on the balcony, it's like, and I have a feeling you're going to have a lot to say about this because you've brought it up before. I was expecting them to kiss on that balcony.
I mean, they did kiss at one point in these 2 episodes, but I don't know. While I know that they have slept together absolutely more than one time, theirs does not feel like a romance to me.
Well, that's what I've always said. Because if, as I recall, you're the one that said they were soulmates.
Yes, absolutely. But I think more platonic than anything.
But even still, I thought like I'm not talking about like a passionate kiss. I don't know. I expected something
just
a little.
A kiss. I mean, that would have been fine.
I mean, a kiss on the lips, but yeah. I could just feel the gravity in this episode. Like I could feel the previous, 100 or 90 or so episodes.
Yeah.
I guess we're not at that much. We're probably like 70, but in a way that you can't fast track that. You can't just jump to that. And I'm so glad that they have allowed losing Quentin to be the through line of this entire season.
Yeah,
that
totally.
We didn't just deal with it in 1 or even 3 episodes, because I kind of predicted, I was like, Eliot's going to hit the wall, and I think it's going to be several episodes down the line. And, he's still very much in the middle of this journey of grief. And
definitely. I mean, and I would say Alice is as well. And Julia, I think, is handling it the best. But I mean, it's so interesting also watching the different ways that they grieve, because you can tell that it impacted Margot. I would say it impacted Josh, but like it didn't. The three of them, Julia, Margot, and Eliot, it impacted them the most. And even still, Alice and Eliot, sorry. But even still, Julia has like no notion of how much more deeply it affected, or how differently it affected Eliot and Alice. And I think opening up those characters to relationships is definitely my favorite part of this season.
Because there was a few weird things that happened in this episode where I was like, that was closure. Like Julia and Katie made up in this episode. And I was like, holy shit, have we really not?
And we kept going a little bit with the Alice and Julia relationship, which I love. I'm like super loving that. And there was a very deliberate shot of Eliot and Alice taking hands at one point. I'm like, that's the stuff I want. And after we just had such a complaint about Riverdale last night, not utilizing these relationships that we've built up and, you know, care about, these 2 episodes of The Magicians were like 100% what we're talking about, where it's like we get a bunch of, you know, different combinations of characters that have either have previous relationships or are developing new relationships, or just, you know, going a little deeper into the relationships they already had. It just was like everything I wanted from these characters.
The first 4 episodes of the season were plot, and this finally allowed everything to sort of mix.
Exactly. And I mean, the running, you know, this is like one of the only shows I can imagine that would have a running joke about doing meth, like eating muffins specifically because they have meth in them, and like everybody just is like, I guess we're doing meth, and it just doesn't matter. And it's so interesting the different ways they all react to it, and then Penny is like obsessed with it now.
Well, you're okay. They weren't just doing meth; they had to stay awake for 5 days.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed to use magic to do it. So Josh was baking them special muffins. And the whole time they were sort of like, this sounds like meth. And Margot was trying to get cocaine, which that I also thought was a good, because she was very like, what do you say we make this party 80s? And it's like, no cocaine. And she's like, but I mean, like, what if it was like 80s?
But what if we did have cocaine though?
Yeah. And so I love how adamant Josh was about it not be, he's like, guys, it's not meth. And literally every one of them was like, okay, so bake the meth muffins.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
And even like Katie went off with Zelda, and Zelda's like, you don't want to stay and help your friends? And she was like, I can't do meth muffins.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, the whole thing was hilarious. And especially the way that Josh described it. He's like, it's just this thing that like helped keep me awake during finals for blah, blah, blah. And it's like
supplement or something.
Yeah, it's like, that sounds exactly like what someone who was trying to give us meth would say.
But we only get the confirmation later from Marina. That was my favorite part, because she does, and stuff like that happens in the show all the time. And it's so funny. And it's one of the only reasons why I tolerate all of the MacGuffin-y jargons, because every so often it pays off.
Well, she also is just like, her delivery of that was so good. She goes, wait, are you guys on meth?
Well, because she comes in with a spell and she does it and everybody but them falls asleep. And she's like, the only thing that would deflect the spell is, are you guys on meth?
Yeah, she was like very excited about it. It was just all around hilarious.
So the plot of the first episode was that they were trying to stay awake for 5 days so they could communicate with the moon.
Because they had to develop moon brain.
Mm-hmm. They had to move the moon to stop the alignment, to stop the convergence from happening. And in theory, you can ask her, and because that was a rookie mistake on their part to not just, I was like, the moon is female. That is known.
Yeah, it is known for sure.
All of that was very interesting and fun and pretty, because the moon had an aura. It would change from red, yellow to green. And that was their plan. And then it turns out that, because I never fully understood the Katie subplot with the book depository, and it doesn't matter. It's
still for the hedges as far as I remember.
Yeah, but Marina's the one who moved the book depository.
Yeah, okay, then I feel like that's still coming into play for somehow.
Well, no, her plan was to use the convergence to her benefit. There were several magicians. One of them was, I don't remember his name, but he was Elon Musk. And,
yeah, basically.
And Marina were trying to use it to their benefit. I love Marina. She is easily one of my favorite characters. I was thrilled to see her. I am fine with the plot. I prefer my Marina a little bit more gray than
This was very mustache twirly villainy.
Yeah, and you were not a fan of her haircut. I was sort of fine with it, but I wanted a bit of an explanation because in my mind, I'm like, okay, so which Marina is this? This has got to be like
exactly.
Another Marina.
Maybe that was my issue because I literally was like, I don't believe for one single second that the Marina that we all know and love would have cut off her iconic red ponytail. I don't know. It just it didn't feel right.
When last we saw her, she was going to like save her girlfriend or something. And so it just kind of, a lot of Marina goes a long way. So I'm not saying that she needs to be in this already very stuffed show, but it was just kind of like, I was thrilled to see her. I was fine with what happened. I guess desired a little bit more. There's still, 6 more episodes, so who knows? But yeah, so they were able to thwart her plan, and she had a showdown with Eliot, in which they tore the moon in half, which, yikes.
It was pretty cool, though.
Oh, it was amazing. Do you remember I had that dream? I had a dream where the moon crashed into the earth, and it was terrifying because it was weirdly hollow in my dream. It like shattered. It was, and we were trying to get to a bunker, and like I feel like that like Digby didn't make it or something. It was like It was crazy. And I actually ended up writing it in a fairy tale.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely in the book.
When you have a dream that vivid, you got to use it somewhere.
Definitely.
That brought us immediately into the next episode, the Oops, I Did It Again. And this was also brilliant because we knew it was coming, but enough time had passed that I properly forgot that Eliot and Margot were somehow in a time loop where because they didn't succeed with their first plan to stop the moon from crashing into the earth, when they died, it reset back 12 hours and they kept going through this time loop. And I didn't know why until they go to the clock boy. I don't remember his name.
Charlton?
No.
The clock boy. Oh, the clock boy. I don't remember his name either. The horomancer. I don't remember either.
And he's like, you guys have stuff all over you. And Eliot and Margot, as chummy as can be, are like, oh, permanence. Because they sprayed themselves with it in like the first episode.
Yeah. Because after Eliot absconded with all of Jane Chatwin's time magic stuff.
This is another one of my favorite things the show does, is so often somebody will actually tell the truth, like explain what happened, and the person is like, fine, don't tell me.
Yeah, 100%.
He's like, oh, it was time perfume I stole from a witch in like Fillory or something.
And he's like, all right, whatever, keep your secrets.
He was like, fine, don't tell me. And so, yeah, they were caught in this time loop. And one of my favorites was, because we get to see a montage of all of them trying all different ways to save the world, and none of them worked. And your favorite was Penny materializing inside a wall.
Well, it just is like they're like, you need to go to the moon. We're gonna like do an oxygen spell. You need to go to the moon and like do something. And he was like, I mean, I can't. I'm broken. Like my traveling doesn't work or whatever. And they're like, well, it's like nut up or shut up time, And he like goes, and then literally immediately there's just like a gush of blood from across the room, and like just his foot. It was hilarious. And then everybody's reactions were my favorite part.
Everybody screams, and then like Alice just faints.
Just faints dead away. It was amazing.
And they're rapid fire, these montages and stuff. And I loved in the middle where they were just partying. They just kept going back to the physical kids' cottage and partying. And it's my dream reality, The Magician's Lives, because one of the parties they were just in full toga regalia.
Yeah, it was great.
I have never been super into men wearing makeup, but Hale Appleman is changing my mind.
He was rocking that gold eyeshadow.
I think my issue with men wearing makeup is I don't love it when men wear feminine makeup. But if men wear makeup to enhance masculine traits, I'm more interested in it.
That's fair.
Guess. Because actually, do you remember I showed you a tweet where I was like, oh my God, Kristen, men are discovering makeup. And you're like, what do you mean? And the dude was like coloring his beard in.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh man.
Fucking men.
We got Todd back. Todd is another one of my favorites. And
Todd is a lot of fun.
I still don't understand the disdain for Todd, because I think he's so cute. But apparently, like, in 3 of these timelines, Margot jerked him off.
Yeah, which was excellent.
because it happened, and then they brought it up again at the end. And
Margot was like, no, I didn't. I definitely didn't.
Well, because then at the very, very end, Todd shows up at the door because the sexist pig came to him with the quest. Yeah. And Margot literally walks into frame, sees him, and then creeps back out.
Yep.
It was like more of that, because
absolutely
that's something that we get a lot of in the show, and I think it's something that people aren't prepared for with a high fantasy drama show like this, is how side-splittingly funny it can be.
Definitely.
And I really don't understand what happened, and that's one of the reasons why I said that as much as I'm still enjoying it, I need the stakes to kind of come down a little bit. But
with the whales?
Yeah.
Do you want me to explain?
Sure.
Okay,
and
so
also bless them for not going to that same beach.
I know, 100%. So, okay, with the whales, basically, my understanding of it was that the whales, like natural, like, or what we consider their natural migration paths, were like sigils on the bottom of the ocean that the whales had to swim constantly. Otherwise, the kraken would come out of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And
I got
so
that.
Yeah, and so basically the whales were able to create the time loop because they were hoping somebody would, well, I don't know that they were hoping somebody would fix it, but basically they were able to create the time loop because that way the kraken doesn't ever get like all the way loose.
Okay.
In some way. And so basically Eliot was like, you need to actually release the kraken early so that we have a chance to stop this from happening in the first place. And it took some convincing, but they finally
so the kraken time loop is a separate time loop.
Well, it's not a separate time loop. Basically, when Eliot convinced the whales at the end, what happened was they were like, okay, fine. And then they basically stopped doing their sigils so that the kraken would release early, so that the time loop would spit them back 12 hours earlier so that they could so that they could get in there before Marina fucked it up and move the moon. That's how they won, because they were able to move the moon without Marina like breaking it.
Oh, so the time loops were still tied to Eliot dying. So
Correct.
When they released the kraken, it killed him, and that put the 12 hours back sooner than...
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not get that.
Yeah,
I took it on good faith, but
they explained it like pretty well, but I was I had to think about it during the commercials.
And like, again, I'm not mad because it was charming, but I was like, why are the whales talking through like an old static TV in a lifeguard? Like, cut. You're fine with that? Okay.
It's fine.
It was very so long and thanks for all the fish. So I really didn't have I was like, okay, I've seen this wackiness before. This checks. The Kraken was good. They've had some great effects this season. I don't know if it's just because we're dealing with slightly different things, like, you know, the world being destroyed by fiery comets, asteroids, or the Kraken, or the massive white spire castle. I don't know. We've had very good effect shots this season.
I agree.
And as always, production, design, the wardrobe, this wardrobe department goes so above and beyond in ways that I can't even.
Like, even something so small as like in the second episode when Katie comes back in from having been outside and everybody's rioting because it's already like the moon is like crashing to Earth or whatever. And she's so hilariously disheveled and she's got like one shoe missing. That was like one of my favorite Katie moments of the entire series. I was like so impressed with Jade's physical comedy in that moment.
I was like, I thought it would be a good idea to ride the subway.
Yeah, hilarious all the way around. I was like losing it at that part. I definitely agree. And I mean, just the way that she's wearing her like normal Katie clothes, but her hair is like all fucked and she's like missing one shoe and her jacket is like hanging off. It was just very funny.
Well, you know what we don't know is whose shade got taken. Alice or Julia's? My guess is Alice.
I am curious about that as well. Well, Alice was a lot less prone to tree genocide when her shade was gone, so I guess we'll see. But neither one of them...
Oh, yeah, they've both lost their shade.
Yeah, but neither one of them were really acting differently afterwards, so I'm not sure.
And then I just wrote a note that I liked the TV reporter's gradual breaking down.
Yeah, so good. I agree.
And because I told you the scene with Josh and Eliot when they went to the taco place. What did I say? You could just hear out because you could hear chaos outside.
Oh, yeah. And there's just like a woman screaming, oh, no.
No, it was why you could just hear this woman's voice scream, why, God? Why?
Oh, why? Yeah.
And it was just so funny. That's also, so this is the most I've missed Quentin, especially when they were waiting for the rousing speech and Julia was like, shit, I guess it's my turn. And then this is also the most I've liked Josh because of the scene with Eliot when they were together. Another place where I was weirdly waiting for them to like make out or something.
I mean, I would think at the end of the world, Josh might, but then I think Eliot was like, no, this is not 100% real. And then I feel like after that, Josh was like, well.
He just seemed so excited to be like the one having the talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So they were able to go back to before Marina split the moon.
Yeah.
And what did they do with her?
I think they just knocked her out, to be honest.
Okay, so we probably will still have her around.
Yeah, almost
which for
definitely.
the most part is fine by me.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that Todd showed up about how they had to save Fillory. So my guess is it was up in the air because what they were saying was that they saved the wrong world. And I don't think that's it. I think that by saving Earth, it then threw Fillory into the trajectory.
Interesting, because I don't want to spoil anything from the books in case they're doing that, but you're right about that, which I forgot. I think that would actually set up the end of the books quite nicely.
Okay.
So that could be interesting.
So yeah, we've got at least 6, because is it 12 or 13? I don't remember. Well, we've got at least 6 more episodes.
It is 13.
Okay, 7. Shit. So we're not even halfway. This show, man, keeps on giving.
1, 2,
I also wrote down,
4.
We have to find out who before we coo.
Yeah, very good. There's the wordplay, especially with like Margot and everybody. It's so good. I love it.
Also, before we go, I did want to say, because we blew through Zelda and Alice's plot last week, we didn't even touch on it.
Oh, the Visigoths?
Yeah. And her and Katie Zelda is a secret MVP if ever there was one.
Totally.
She's such a wonderful, and she's such a wonderful presence. And again, such a well that we don't know.
Yeah.
Along with, I mean, many of the day players on the show are, because I can't think of her name, Keegan Connor Tracy.
Oh,
Lipton.
yeah.
What happened to the other one, the blonde one? I liked her.
I liked her too, because I like that actress a lot. She was on Mad Men for like a minute, and she's been in other stuff, but I don't know what because she fucked Penny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened to her.
Well, she didn't, but
I thought she did.
No, she almost did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just Zelda and Katie had this really great conversation that made me appreciate Katie a little bit more, and where they talked about Dean Fogg, and we'll absolutely see him again, but I'm curious how long he's going to be sitting out and what we're going to do. So,
agreed.
I think that's good for now. I mean, obviously, I could probably
keep talking forever. I mean, see you next week.